Hello friends, today in this lecture we are going to learn how to test the various assumptions of regression. In the previous video I have already told you what do you mean by regression and what are the various assumptions of regression. So if these assumptions are not fulfilled, then we can say that the results are not blue. So let's revise those assumptions of the regression. So the first assumption is that there should be a linear relationship between dependent and independent variables. Second assumption says that the mean of residuals should be equals to 0. Third is residuals should be normally distributed. Fourth, there should be homoscedasticity in residuals. Fifth, there should be no correlation between the independent variable, that means there is no multicollinearity. And sixth is there should be no autocorrelation among the residuals. So today in this lecture I am going to show how we are going to test the first two assumptions in R. But before testing these assumptions, we must have created the regression model. I have already discussed how to create the regression model. This is my data set, and in this data set these are the variables: your FDI, exports, imports, inflation rate and USD INR. So now let me first of all create the model. As I have already told you that to create the model we require a package lm test. I have already installed the package and I have also libraried the package. Now I am going to create the regression model in which my inflation rate is a dependent variable and exports, imports and USD INR will be my independent variables. So let's create the model. So I am naming the model 3. Model 3 is equals to LM. Now first of all I have to write the dependent variable which is inflation rate. Now I have to put the tilde sign and now the independent variables. So first independent variable is exports, then plus imports and plus USD INR. Now I have created the model. So now let me write summary model 3. Now this is the summary. We have already discussed about the summary in the previous video. So these outputs are showing me that exports, imports and USD INR, all three independent variables, are significantly impacting my dependent variable, that is my inflation rate. The only thing is that exports and USD INR are having the negative relationship and imports are having the positive relationship. Now I am going to test the assumptions of regression. Now if these assumptions are fulfilled, then I can say that these three variables are significantly impacting the dependent variable, and if these assumptions are not fulfilled, then I can say that my model is not a good fit. But if you are going to see these results, from this result also the p-value is less than 0.05 and the model is saying that this output is saying that your model is fit. So first of all let's test the assumption. So first of all I am going to test the first assumption, that is there should be a linear relationship between dependent and independent variables. I have already discussed the various tests that we are going to use to test these assumptions. So the first assumption, which is saying that there should be a relationship among the variables, is to plot the residual plot. So first of all I am going to create the variable in which I am going to store all the residuals. So I have already created the model 3. Now I am storing all the residual part in residuals model 3. Now in residual model 3 I am storing all the residuals of this model. So command will be residuals and model 3. Now in this I have already stored all the residuals. So now I am going to plot them. So plot residuals model 3 Now this is my plot. Now from this plot, how can I say that whether there is a linear relationship or not? As I have already discussed in the previous lecture also, then if all these variables, these residuals are randomly distributed among this graph, then we can say there is a linear relationship. But now I can say they are forming some pattern. That means all the variables, all the residuals are lying in this part only. So if I'm going to draw a line from here to here, it's forming a small smiley face. And some outliers are also there. This is an outlier, this is an outlier. So I can say that there is not a linear relationship among the variables. So my first assumption is not fulfilled. So this is the way where I can test that whether my first assumption there is a linear relationship between dependent and independent variables or not. Now there is a second way also by which I can check whether there is a linear relationship between the dependent and independent variable or not. Again I am going to plot the model. So I am saying plot. My name of a model is model 3 and then comma I'll write 1. Now see, this is my plot of residuals only. Now previously what I have done, I have created the vector with the name residuals and then I have plotted, and now in this way I have already created the model. From the model I have created the plot of residuals. In both the way thing is the same, that I am going to test whether there is a linear relationship among independent variables and dependent variables or not. Now in this you can see this red line. And this red line is not a straight line. As we all know that linear means straight. If this red line is a straight line passing from 0, that means if this red line is a straight line with this dotted line, that black line that you are able to see, if this red line is over, this is a straight line, then I can say that there is a linear relationship among the dependent and independent variable. Now this red line is not linear, this is curvilinear. So I can say there is not a linear relationship among the dependent and independent variables. Now there is one more way to plot the same graph. What I can say, I can write plot model 3 only and then press 2 times enter. Now if I am going to press 2 times enter, I am going to get the same plot. So in these 3 ways you can test whether there is a linear relationship among dependent variables and independent variables or not. So in this graph we can see that there is not a linear relationship. So my first assumption is not fulfilled. Now let's come to the second assumption. Second assumption says that the mean of residuals should be 0. Now with the same graph we can also prove that whether the mean of the residuals is 0 or not. As I have already told you that if this red line is straight and it is passing through 0, then I can say that the mean of the residuals is 0. But now in this graph you can see that this red line is not passing through 0 and neither this is a straight line. So this red line is not showing you that the residuals are having the 0 mean. So in this way I can say that neither my first assumption is fulfilled and neither my second assumption is fulfilled. So first 2 assumptions are not fulfilled. So I can say that the model that I have created is not a good fit model. That's all for today's lecture. In the next lecture, we are going to study how I'm going to test the third assumption, that the residuals should be normally distributed. Thank you.